Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming into another video. All right, it's about the Nuggets. That's what Stephen A said, man. Media's coming around to giving Mike Malone what he wants. More attention on his team. They're going to get their 5 minutes of fame. They're going to get their trophy. Because I don't believe the Lakers are coming back, and I don't believe Jimmy Butler got enough in his back pocket to deal with those two. But Jimmy's been doing the impossible, so why would I think that it would be a wise bet to bet against Jimmy? With that being said, the Celtics still got 2 games to play. They're going to play today, but I don't expect for them to come back and win that series. But you never know. I've seen it happen before, you know. So we'll see. But I'm kind of hopeful that this will be the final outcome for the Celtics and the Heat. The Heat will come out of that and meet the Nuggets in the finals, and then give us a really, really new and fresh finals that we've never seen before. So that's really what it is, man. If I wasn't a Laker fan, I wouldn't necessarily be upset at this at all. It's good to see fresh blood in here. It's just unfortunate that we have to get out the way in order for that to happen. But I'm sure the scriptwriters, if they exist, I'm pretty sure they're pleased with this. Even though everybody thinks the Lakers are going to be ushered into the finals, I knew for a fact that there was also another way that could have went that would have made the NBA a lot of money. And this is that the Lakers losing in a situation like this. So I don't know, man. I don't even know where to throw my mind at this point in regards to the team. We're just on the verge of trying to stave off elimination and facing elimination now. And because they haven't won a game in this series, they just didn't really give us a whole lot of hope. Now you just think the team is probably just going to choose to complete the season right now. You know, as we've seen many teams do, where they just mail it in. I felt like the Lakers were kind of mailing it in at the beginning of the third game, to be honest with you. Just looking at the energy, how they closed out in the first quarter. It almost looked like the first quarter of the first game to me. And you could just tell that they were on the verge of either asking their role players to step up and have it so that the role players would spark the stars, and then from there we get going, or it wasn't going to happen. That's the energy yesterday. Even though Anthony was into it, he was only going to give us what he could give us, and it wasn't going to be nothing like something spectacular that night. Bron is in a very, very, very interesting spot with his career, man. Because as a Laker fan, I'm here to say that as much as I appreciate LeBron James, this injury has me wondering if it's the injury that's really kept him looking like this or age. It's hard to tell, and you have to go in next season with a risk. The risk is we got a nice little championship caliber squad for sure. But how long does the shelf life have on that? And is it a championship caliber squad if you try to replace LeBron James with another star? Do you still have that? Or do you have to suddenly look at yourself as a different team altogether? And with that being said, would have to shake some things up with the roster to make yourself back great again. This is why this series and this season was the timeline. You know, this is the timeline, because now we face all different types of options that Genie can opt into. I think the good thing we have right now is confidence in our general manager. Rob Pelinka has earned our respect. He's earned another year at the very least, and maybe even so more so than that, because what he's given us is an opportunity to have a team that is good enough to get to the Western Conference Finals, that we do believe will make the playoffs next year and have a nice run in the playoffs again if we keep the team together. So the only real question mark I have as it pertains to that being the case is whether or not I should really go into this next season with LeBron James in year 21 at age 39 and ask him to be the number 2 guy on the team this year. I just don't really want to do that. I think this postseason run and this season has shown me that he and Anthony Davis should not be put together anymore, because they both need to miss games regularly, and that's just not the way you can do it anymore. I don't want any load management superstars, to be honest with you. But Anthony Davis is not somebody I'm just willing to willy-nilly and trade for a couple of reasons, including the fact that he had a nice, healthy stretch playoff run where he didn't miss no games in the playoffs. So that's a big sign that he can have a good off-season with his conditioning and then come back in even better shape and probably a better player next year for us. regardless if Bron here or not. We can build something really good around Anthony Davis, and if he goes somewhere else, he's going to be a player that destroys us wherever he goes, probably kicks us out of the playoffs. So it's like you got to be very careful not to replace Anthony Davis with a bunch of picks or something like that and then start from scratch and not be good enough when you get up to the top. We've already done that. So, the jury is out on what the Lakers should do. But as far as trading Anthony Davis, now that we're at the end of the season and he's healthy, knock on wood, he stays that way in Game 4 and the rest of the playoffs. I don't want to trade Anthony Davis. Now that we're here, I'm cool. I'm not exactly excited about what I saw throughout the season and throughout these playoffs all the way around, but his defense's talent is not to be trifled with in any way. It's not to be trifled with. And even if he can't give you number 10 points on the offensive end, your defense is probably the best in the league, so long as he's on your team. So that's why I'm keeping Anthony Davis, because I can strip everything else down, replace it with an entirely different team, and still have a superstar in place that can help get me to the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, if you put him on the Jazz right now, they're in the playoffs. They may not get as far as we got right now, but they're in the playoffs. You put them on the Bulls, they're in the playoffs. You put them on Orlando, they're in the playoffs. You put them on the Rockets, they're in the playoffs. So it's like, if I want to reset my situation, I don't really have to get rid of Anthony Davis to be happy with that. Now, he's going to be pissed if I rip everything loose and replace it with, replace Bron, replace some of the stuff that needs to be replaced or what have you. But with him on contract, I will assess it if I'm Jeanie Buss and say, well, if I can't build nothing around him, then maybe I would let him go. But if he would be willing to stay, he's my future. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go trekking around to try to find somebody who's almost as good as him when I just lost, in this case, in this scenario, LeBron James. I'm not shipping them both out and resetting my timeline completely, given the fact that the last time I did that, I didn't come up on the best pick equity. I didn't get the number 1 overall pick. It wasn't no Joel Embiid. You know what I mean? We didn't get the best guy that year. So without us having our full picks, even though we have some picks going forward, I'm keeping Anthony Davis. I'm keeping Anthony Davis until the swap circumstances are out. So next year for sure he's gonna be on the team if I'm running things, just to keep booties in the seats. But LeBron James, I'm gonna tell y'all the truth, man. I don't really know how to go forward with the King, man. I'm torn bad because I don't think that he's somebody that is deficient in regards to helping me get to the playoffs or nothing like that. But I also see him now as an overinflated piece in terms of his price. That's what it really comes down to for me right now. It's just the price, bro. If he's gonna eat up this much of the cap, my concern is we're not gonna be able to keep a deep enough team around him anymore. That's my worry. If we got to play Austin, inflated price. If we got to play Rui, an inflated price. If we're going to re-sign Lonnie, if they're going to bite the bullet and re-sign D'Lo. Having LeBron James on that price next to Anthony Davis with all that other stuff is just going to make it so that we're not quite deep enough in theory. Now, depth. I got to reassess depth as it pertains to how necessary it is. Because we ended up having excess depth, but for a set of circumstances, it didn't translate to us having a better team than the team who didn't. I still think the Nuggets are playing a dangerous game because at the end of the day, they're 2 or 3 ankle rolls away from not having a chance here. That's the crazy thing about it. Murray rolls an ankle, Jokic rolls an ankle in Game 4, and suddenly we're back in the series. Now, it's going to take that, but you don't want that if you're the Nuggets because that's 2 players down and suddenly your whole situation can shift. I don't think in that situation we probably even still win the series based on the odds of it all, but that's not what I'm assessing at all. I'm assessing it from the Nuggets' point of view, as it pertains to the shallowness of their actual team and how they've been able to slide with health. If they would have had any real injuries, I'm telling y'all, this doesn't go well for them, and that's something I think they're going to have to address in the offseason, whether they win the championship or not. If they don't get deeper, there ain't going to be no repeat, in my humble opinion. The chances of them staying this healthy next season, it's hard to see that. But I think they will address their depth, and they ain't going to have no problem getting free agents, especially with the run they're on right now in the playoffs. So that's what I got to say at the end of the day. I think they look more sturdy than they are, the Nuggets. But nevertheless, as I assess what we need to do with the depth that we have, I don't know if investing so much money and effort into our depth makes as much sense if you get to a certain point and the depth isn't realized. I have to assess that. I weigh it against the fact that you're going to overuse 8 players, and most teams are not going to have the luck that the Nuggets have had this season. Hell, the Nuggets have never had this type of luck before, which is why they've never been here. Teams always hurt. And so I still think depth is very much important to keeping your team healthy in most situations, and I think this is an anomaly with the Nuggets, and hopefully they can stay healthy, and it'll play itself out the right way for them for the rest of these playoffs. So depth is important. How important can we realize it? Does it matter? Those are questions that have to be answered. And as I think about it further, I do believe it matters because you want to get through the regular season. And I don't believe you can get through the regular season with a shallow team. Just 8 players throughout an 82-game schedule? I don't think so. However, you definitely want those players to be able to play an 82-game schedule. The way we staggered out AD and Bron's ability to play throughout the season, it kept them fresh to get to the Western Conference Finals, but it didn't keep them cohesive enough as a team to compete when they got there. There has to be some more basketball being played amongst the main pieces on this team. More practices, less missing of games for any reason, including that of health. If guys are freaking athletes, then they got to be able to perform. And if their bodies can't perform, then they need to be slotted properly down the depth chart, slotted properly on our cap so that we can continue to build a champion around them. If not, they're bad pieces and they got to go. That is not just the rule here. That's the rule in all teams, in my humble opinion. Otherwise, you're just not going to have enough. And you're going to need a lot of luck in order to be able to get it right. And look, the Nuggets, and listening to people talk about the Nuggets, they just have a schematic advantage based on the way you have to guard them and respect their shooting, respect their offensive players, respect Jokic, respect Gordon in a different way. It's just like they're slotted so perfectly to they're actually put together a little better than we are right now, because they have a little more of what they need. Now, the Bamba piece being missing kind of hurt us, even though we don't think he can guard Jokic. He definitely helps us on the offensive boards. He definitely helps us with deflections and block shots and takes away possessions in that way, maybe even contributing easy buckets or jump shots or something, free throw percentage. But Mo Bamba may not be that great of a player. We never found out. So it's just one of those things where it's like, in theory, you look at his length, you look at what he could do, and maybe he helps you. He's supposed to be playing in Game 4. I don't think it matters at all. But we are happy that he's here. But unfortunately, his piece was missing, just the same. So that's another thing. It's like the Lakers got to address a few things. We got to get ourselves a point guard. D'Angelo Russell. Hey, look, man, I gave it a night. You know what I mean? I didn't want to get into it last night because I just felt like I was a little too much feeling the loss and didn't think I had assessed everything with D'Angelo as properly as I had been leading up to it. I was about to negate certain things I had already said in reacting to his performance. He does have the calluses, and we've made a bigger deal on this channel about that than anyone else. And the fact that he had been, messed with psychologically by Mike Malone, pressed the right buttons, it worked. Those buttons worked, whether I was offended by it or not. He's up 3-0. It worked. He attacked D'Angelo Russell's mental health, and it was the right button to press for his team to get the championship, or at least get out of this series. And that's a problem for me, man. I want mentally strong basketball players on this team, guys who are ready for the moment, guys who are not going to cower the moment, and most importantly, guys who are going to force the moment. I thought D'Angelo Russell was passive, attempting like 2 and 3 shots, 3-point shots in the series a game. Like, I need him to up his attempts because that's where he's strong. If you ain't jacking up 3-point shots and giving us that long range ice in his veins, then what the hell is he bringing to the table? You know what I'm saying? That's what it really comes down to. His methodical, shifty left to right ain't a good setup guy for AD and Bron. You know what I mean? Even though he's supposed to be a very efficient player, it didn't translate to that based on the style of play we had him in. He needs to be in a system that fits his style, surrounded by pieces that fit who he is. Or you got to slip him to the 2 and render him a player that you hide on the defensive end. Going back to him in this series, knowing that he wasn't successful, is the same thing we did with Malik Beasley. It's the same thing we did with small ball all season long. And I told you those traits are going to hurt us when they needed not to, because you can't do things that don't work. Get used to trying things that don't work. Work that into your equation as part of who your DNA is, and then proceed to think it's going to succeed when used in the playoffs. If something doesn't work, it should not be used. And so when you have to like verbalize those type of things in regards to your coach, and then when doing so, you look and you still see him do these things, and you listen to everybody who talks about your team and they're saying the same things to your coach, and he still does the same things. I don't know how we find ourselves with coaches that are set on their ways and have their mindset locked on whatever it is they're doing. I don't know how we find these people, but we have got to open our minds to find people who can make in-game adjustments, amend what it is that they're married to, and look at what's on the floor and react to that and react fast. And people who are not going to make their team live and die with stuff that just simply isn't looking like it's going to succeed. I think the main thing that hurt the Lakers was just them looking at various things and saying, okay, it worked, but let's try something else. Okay, it worked, but let's try something else. With no rhyme or reason to it other than to try something else. And I'm telling you, you do have to mix it up against players like Jokic. You do have to do that. But you have to do that to some end as it pertains to, okay, something just worked. Maybe we should go back to it again. You know, and so I just thought that the overall way that series was put together was bad. I think the excuses for why it was bad could be in place based on the fact that we had a nice long series with Golden State, a solid, nice long series with Memphis, but at the end of the day, the Denver Nuggets have been the best team all season long. We didn't have schemes for them with the assumption that maybe we might see them. Why were we caught off guard so much by the number one overall seed in the Western Conference Finals? Have y'all not had people studying that damn team all season long? Like, that's one of the reasons why I was so confident we would beat the Nuggets, because I felt like we had been watching the Nuggets all season long and were ready when we made the trades for what they brought to the table, just like I thought we were ready for what everybody else brought to the table. But when I looked at what we put down on the floor, I realized we had a hole on the floor. We couldn't guard their fifth man. Wherever we had to switch out to their fifth man, he could hit the shot. We either were hoping he'd miss a shot or he'd make it and we'd be dead. And it's like, yo, you did not have the Nuggets in mind, did you, Rob? And if you did, boy, was this team not used properly to defend them. So I was a lot disappointed with that. Not a little, but a lot, honestly. I just felt like we did not, in the end, have enough of what we needed to defend the team that's been at the top of the West the whole time. And it's like, as I told you guys, if we weren't putting together something that can compete with everybody, I said this before we made the trade, then we're not doing our job. If we can't put together a real contender and we fall short for any reason, then we're not really actually good enough to be doing what we're doing, and thus should be doing something else. And see, that's what it is for me. I don't think that this is a failure, but I don't feel like I'm close to a championship. And because I'm not close to a championship, my timeline is off. And so, as a Laker fan, that's a tough pill to swallow, because if I were a Denver fan, I'm happy to be here. If I had never been to a championship, I'm happy to be here. But we've been in the midst of trying to build a contender for the last 5 years. You know what I'm saying? We've been scrapping role players around these dudes, letting people go, bringing others in, letting people go, bringing others in. It's like, at some point in time, you got to look at this core and say, bro, we have gotten as far as we can go. We can't put what we need around you. Even when we had the money to do it, we can't do it. Y'all ain't delivering. The situation's getting worse. Coach is young in regards to his coaching tenure, and he ain't making common sense decisions that help the team. Are we really a contender? And the answer is, honestly, not if you can't win a game against the Nuggets. No. And so that's what it really comes down to. I think the definition of contender is a team that has a chance to win a championship. If you can't win a game in the Western Conference Finals, you never had a chance to win a championship. So while we're pleased with our team and as far as they've gone, I didn't think they would get this far. In fact, I thought they were going to be gone in the first round, to be honest with you. I told y'all that maybe once or twice before the series began. I didn't really think this team was really built like that. And they proved to me that they were not. They weren't built like that. They were good enough to beat a Memphis team that motivated them with disrespect. And even in that series, they did things that were self-inflicted, that hurt themselves. And then in this Golden State series, I felt like we played down to the level of the opponent as it pertains to size. Extended that series in ways that weren't necessary. Duplicated the same formula from the first series, even though we saw. And those were breadcrumbs for me leading into this series, but I just didn't believe in Denver. See, it wasn't that I believed in us over the top. It was just that I underestimated Denver because I was looking at the fullness of what it is they had and just saw the Conchars, saw the different players, a DJ on the back of that bench, saw players that they ain't supposed to have on the roster right now, guys that they probably should replace in the offseason to give themselves more depth. And so they got away with it. That's at the end of the day, the Lakers let them off the hook by not playing well enough to win a single damn game thus far and put themselves out of the series before fatigue was ever realized by the Nuggets. And that was because we strategized to harm ourselves to start the series, came out of the locker room at the halftime the same damn way, even though those circumstances didn't work, and ultimately didn't use Rui Hachimura because we're afraid to pay him too much. He would have been the one that hurt all of those teams. We would have played a lot less basketball if we would have started him in all three of those damn series, because now 3 of those damn teams could not stop that kid. And we refused to do that for reasons that didn't have nothing to do with it winning a championship, and as a result, we're not a contender. You put winning second, you lose. You want to have pieces that are going to help you win. But when it gets to a point where it's time to win, you don't want to use those pieces because you're afraid to lose those pieces. What the hell sense does that make? So that's where I'm at. D'Lo, you playing D'Lo when everything on the numbers told you to bench that kid. His last coach benched him in the playoffs last year for the same reason. And Darvin Ham didn't see the fruit in studying some of that. You could have at least called that coach. Call that dude in Minnesota while you're going through this. Like, yo, you benched him. What did you see? What did you see? Why did you bench that kid? Did you regret that decision? Like, I don't know that those phone calls were placed, and I would have made that phone call. I would have made that phone call before game 2. If I was Coach Ham, I would have called the Minnesota Timberwolves coach. If I know that man or not, I would have got a hold of him and said, listen, I know you're in your best interest to help me in any way, but you got this kid, I got this kid, and I want to help him. How best to use him? You benched him last year. What did you think about that? Did that work out for you? How do I help this kid? That's how you approach that coach. Not in regards to helping yourself, but in regards to helping the kid. And I just felt like Darvin Ham wasn't fit for this job, man. After a full season of this, bro, let me tell y'all the truth, man. I just thought he made some really bonehead decisions, y'all, all season long. I don't know why. I've had my ideas about people behind him telling him to do certain things. I've alleged, or not alleged, but speculated throughout the course of this year that we were playing into the other teams' hands at times for the betterment of the revenue of the league. Showcase Doncic, showcase other guys, showcase other guy, and everybody makes money. It's the best thing in the world for the league if people are playing well against the team that everybody's watching in the LA Lakers. So that's my theory, but I don't really know what I'm looking at. What I do know is that all of this stuff that I've seen is just make me feel like I don't really want to do this again with Darvin Ham, y'all. And I know we can't keep recycling coaches. I listened to DTLF. He said he don't want to fire Darvin because we just keep recycling coaches. But my thing is, bro, I can't grow with a coach who, from the beginning, shows me that common sense in regards to certain things are not really entering the equation. And he's going to gamble with stuff that doesn't really work because that's just his personality. Like that type of stuff. Like, yo, bro, I don't want to deal with that. I want him to be the guy going against me so I can take advantage of that. You see what I'm saying? That's food. And I've been talking about this all year. That's food, y'all. And I've been scolding myself about how I've talked about Darvin Ham on this channel. Last year, I was vicious toward Frank Vogel. And I just want to be better toward coaches because it's a job that I don't even know that I could do at all. If I were to learn the job, I probably couldn't do it myself. So it's like I get the importance of just allowing guys on the sidelines to just do their job. The pressure that they're dealing with may make it so that they're making mistakes. Lack of sleep make it so that all of the schedule really hurt us. And so I want people to know that I'm aware of that. But I just don't understand what the hell I saw, not just in the playoffs, but like throughout the whole season, bro. What the hell was I looking at? The small ball? And it's like, okay, if the organization wants you to run small ball, then I ain't gonna, you know what I mean? If that comes out, that genie bus and the Knights of the Round Table just demanded that he run small ball, then I will renege everything I'm saying. Absolutely. Same thing about Vogel. Hey, if it just turns out that they were telling him to do stuff that just was bad for on purpose, then that's just what it is. But until I know that to be the case, I just got to go by what I'm seeing. And what I'm seeing is a coach just being stubborn, just like many coaches in Laker past. Stubborn about doing things his way, even if the results tell you that those things should not be done. And for me, salute to Kobe minute, I don't care for that trait at all when I have a contender and I'm trying to win. I don't care for that at all. In fact, I need that gone so that I can compete properly. And I just felt like going into the playoffs, we had an experienced coach who didn't know what he was doing. And even though he had some good coaching by solid coaches, their styles, the coaches that coached him, their styles are a bit unorthodox. Those styles don't often work. So it's like, I like Darvin from a player perspective. I think he'd be an excellent assistant coach in terms of doing like what Phil Handy's doing and being that motivator, that speaker, that guy that helps. But him being the head honcho, making the mind decisions, nah, man, no, that's over with. We got to be honest about that. You don't have to go into another season with that type of stuff. You don't. Not if you're really paying attention to what you just saw and assessing it for the way that I am. Nah, you don't go down that path no more. Especially if you're going to keep AD and Bron James. No, you don't do that. Unless they demand he stay and you want to capitulate to that, which is possible. I'm not ruling that out. Maybe they really like their coach. But, I'm not in the business of firing coaches that make it to the Western Conference Finals. That's not how this necessarily works at all. But I look and I say he didn't get the most out of that team. Players regressed significantly on this roster. Guys that we were excited about acquiring 3 months ago were unplayable. Now it's like, I can assess all of that and just say, nah, you took this team and made it significantly worse, brother. I mean, and as I told you, I wasn't playing. I think an average coach could have probably won a championship with this roster. I really believe that. Granted, I've learned to respect the Denver Nuggets significantly more, so maybe I have to amend that. But at the end of the day, it's like, I don't think he got the most out of this team, even going up against the Nuggets as good as they are. We made ourselves look worse against the Nuggets, and because of it, we don't have a single win in the series. We could have won game 1. We could have won game 2. Hell, we could have won game 3. We didn't win any of those games. We could point at Darvin mistakes in all of those games, and I can point out Darvin mistakes in all of them other games that led up to it too, to be honest with you. And while he's a rookie and you expect him to make mistakes, what takes precedent? His growth as a coach on your team or your timeline? The answer is my freaking timeline. Obviously, when the coach is doing stuff that I personally think is stupid, like flat out stupid. Playing Malik Beasley over and over again when he's bricking shots left and right throughout the course of the season, and you putting him in lineups that don't work, stupid. Playing Lonnie Walker in 3-guard lineups when that repeatedly failed you throughout the course of the season, stupid. All right. Starting D'Lo in this series was stupid. Returning to him was stupid. Returning to him again was stupid, and then further returning to him again was even stupider. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? These type of things, small ball lineups in the playoffs when they had failed you throughout the course of the season, not talking to the king and telling him that the 3-point shooting was something that you weren't going to tolerate. All these things needed to happen, bro. All these things need to happen, and people were not able to do what was necessary to get the most out of this team and make them look as best they needed to when it mattered the most. And we saw these things leading up to the series. We saw these things leading up through the season, and we just didn't see enough to make us feel confident that we should even do this anymore. The D'Lo, putting D'Lo back in the game in the second half of game 3 was the end for me. That's what I didn't say in yesterday's video. That was it. That was it. Because I was willing to get D'Lo in the game to start the game yesterday, even though I thought it was stupid. I'm like, you know what, we can work it out. We give him another chance, one more chance. And then when he came out there and he wasn't well in the first half of the third game, I told you guys at the halftime video, now it's obvious to me that it's time to remove him from the series. It was obvious to everybody else before that. I gave him an extra half of basketball in the third game. He showed me. He was cooked. Mentally, physically, the guy has nothing to give me. He's making mistakes out there on top of him not making shots. He needs to be off the floor. Darvin came back with him in the second half of the game. We're down 0-2. This kid has a glaring plus minus that hurts us versus the glaring plus minus that helps us when he's sitting. And in the second half of the third game, with your back basically against the wall because no one's ever come back from 0-3, he decided to go with a player who had struggled to the point where even I had said enough is enough. And that trait had been duplicated on a multitude of times throughout the course of the season with different players in different ways. And then him sitting players who played well, like Rui Hachimura in certain situations in the playoffs, or Wenyen Gabriel earlier in the season, or Lonnie Walker earlier in the season, or Thomas Bryant earlier in the season. Darvin Ham has earned the right to be let go. And I know Genie's not going to do that because it doesn't look good to keep firing coaches, especially a rookie black coach. It looks funny. But I'm telling you, I fire him today. Not today, but after the series. Not right before Game 4. But, you know, we're going to end this series, and then we're going to go into the situation probably with a new coach before the draft. And it ain't going to be Nick Nurse. I've done some homework on Nick Nurse. From my understanding, his offense is really stagnant. So if you bring in Nick Nurse, you're going to have a repeat of Mike Brown. Remember that many years ago? That's what Nick Nurse brings to the table. A very complicated and stagnant, slow half-court offense. Do not go that route. I just want to make that very clear. Nick Nurse is an awesome coach by name, but now that I know what his offense brings to the table, no way. Absolutely not. Study it before you even bring that man in. So that's what I want to say. I've been hearing about that offense, and it's not good for us. So I'd rather keep Darvin Ham than to bring in somebody who's going to bring a worse offense to the table after what I just saw in this series. Absolutely not. We don't need worse offense. That's what we don't need. So, but Darvin, bro, I'm telling you, man, I don't know what situation is good for him as a head coach. I don't think he's ready to be a head coach. Even though he got to the Western Conference Finals, it's really pretty of a thing to have on your resume, but I think that roster would have got me to the Western Conference Finals, bro. And I probably would have had a better shot at it because I would have did things that made a lot more sense. Like leaving Rui on the floor and giving myself more size against a big team. You know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that. It's just like, yo, a kid with a controller in his hand would have did a better job than Darvin did in that situation, man. And I'm telling you, this team could have gone farther. He could have at least won a game or two in the series, man. There were things we did to ourselves that hurt us in this series, just like every other game leading up to it. And I'm not going into a sophomore season with a coach that did that. With a team of LeBron James, Anthony Davis, red hot Austin Reeves, and a bunch of players we had traded for to get here to give us a deep enough team just for him to turn each and every one of those players into useless basketball players by the end of the season. I mean, how many players did he render useless that came here playing well? You know what I'm saying? And I'm telling you this. That ain't just a Darvin thing. That's not a Darvin thing only. That's an AD and Bron thing. Let me tell y'all what I thought about for these last 24 hours. And I have to say, Darvin Ham is a part of that. But there's evidence to say that Darvin Ham may not even have anything to do with that. Because every time we bring a player to these guys to be on their team, they're rendered useless offensively, almost. The guys get significantly worse when they come here. And it ain't just this season with Darvin. It was with Frank and it was with Luke. When we bring guys to this team with those two, maybe not Luke, because I don't think Luke was here when we got AD, but when we bring new guys to this team, their numbers draw down. In a lot of cases. It's only a few players that we've seen play better with Bron and AD than they did without him. Kyle Kuzma, no. Look it around. KC, please playing better with Denver. You know, it's a lot of stuff going on in that regard. You know what I mean? We let go of guys and they immediately get better. You know, look at THT. Yeah, that's another one. You know, it's just this core, for whatever reason, guys can't play with them. They don't play better with them. They can't get offensive rhythm going. They can't get easy buckets, or whatever the case may be. Far be it for me to be able to illustrate it off a whim. But for whatever reason, we bring players to them, and the stats draw down. And I'm tired of that. I'm tired of players being significantly worse when they get here and better when they leave. Beasley's going to be better when he leaves. You know what I'm saying? I know that. Somebody's going to find a way to get something out of him. And so that's really where I'm at with it. We're going to probably lose Vando. He's going to be better when he leaves. D'Lo probably going to be better when he leaves. All these struggling players that we couldn't get nothing of. Troy probably going to be better when he leaves. Keep naming them. I don't know that that's a Darvin thing. I think that's just how it is when you have AD and Bron constructed as the guys that are being rotated around. just can't get nothing out of the other guys enough for however they go. So, hey, look, man, I don't know what's best. I don't know. I don't think this team is too far away from being able to compete for a championship. You need a center. You need a real point guard. But you also need to be able to stay healthy. And if your second overall piece is 1 foot on the rocking chair and 1 foot on the basketball court, it becomes a situation where it's like, how much longer do I actually have a championship team if that piece could fall off a cliff any moment? And I could do all this, pay all this money into this thing, and then that piece is just like gonna hit the wall. You know? And you weigh that against the possibility of AD doing the same thing. It's just like, am I really gonna do this again? Am I sure? And if you're asking me, I don't know. I don't know that we're better if we don't, but I don't know if we're good enough if we're doing this. And I don't know if we don't find ourselves happy that we stop this sooner and start the process of our rebuild sooner, so that we can get back to glory sooner. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not gonna sit up here and pretend like I got that answer, though. But I do know this: we're getting blown out, swept out of the playoffs by a Denver team that only want to use 8 people. And I'm telling you, man, we made those 8 people look like 16. And for me, I don't know how much credit I should give the Denver Nuggets, probably a lot. But I can definitely look at the things that we did in those games and say we hurt ourselves there, and it just keeps going. Hurt ourselves there, didn't get better there, didn't get better there. And there was a lot of bad buttons pressed too. It's like, you know a guy sucks, and I'm going to use that word and just let it be. You know a guy sucks, you put him back on the floor. That's going to demoralize the team. We mentioned that yesterday in the video we made. It's not just about him struggling. It's about the other players having to trust him now. You're asking players to trust a guy who's been struggling. It's just going to do this to their shoulders. That's a very underrated thing for a coach. Don't demoralize your team with your decisions like Darvin did. He did that a lot to us this year. Where the team was better, they were doing good, and he takes something off the floor that didn't work, and then the rest of the guys shoulder slump because they look at it. They don't want to, disrespect the coach. They don't want to second guess the coach. They don't want to do his job or nothing. But it's like you could tell they didn't agree with the decision, and you could tell they came out with a lack of energy because they didn't believe in the decision. And we saw that more than once this season. We saw it more than once yesterday in that game, in these series. So those are the things. It's like, okay, can he get better at those things? Of course. Rookie coach learn his lesson, get beat this year, come back to next year. But like, I just don't know if I want to go forward with the line of decision making. He's, the way that he believes in the game of basketball right now. If he doesn't change the way that he believes in the game fundamentally with these small ball stuff and believing his players that are struggling and getting the most out of the guy who can't do nothing, if he don't stop doing that crap, he's not going to succeed anywhere. Not just here. He's going to fail in the next place too. You better understand that in life, you can help people who are struggling, but on a basketball floor, the only way to help somebody who's struggling is to sit their butt down so that they can win. That's it. D'Lo needed to be set down so he could win. As long as he was on the floor, he was a loser. And so Darvin putting him on the floor put him in a position that made it worse for him, not better. It's the same thing I said about Genie earlier in the year when we were I don't remember who it was we were talking about, but it was referenced the same way. You're not doing anybody any favors by keeping them in a bad situation. You're doing better by letting them go. You know what I mean? So that they can get to a situation that's best for them, so they can stop being tortured down there with the minutes given not playing well. That was essentially what I was saying. I don't remember who I was talking about, but it was Genie. Genie in that situation was the example. She would need to delegate someone out of the organization in order for the betterment of them, and it seemed to me that she thought she was doing them a favor by keeping them in the organization failing. So this ain't no different with, this ain't no different. You gotta get guys off the floor so they can succeed. Beasley, same thing. It was throughout the earlier in the season. It's like, Beasley wants to win. He's the reason we're losing. If he sits down, suddenly he becomes a winner. I think he wants to win. It's like, sit the man down so he can succeed. D'Lo was the same thing. D'Lo would have been very happy if we would have won the game yesterday, but because he was out there for so long, we lost. Like, he would have been happy to win, I'm sure. So coaches just got to psych themselves into understanding that whatever's best for the team is best for the player who's struggling. Whatever's best for the team is best for the player who's struggling. So that formula wasn't applied, and add that to another reason why we don't find ourselves with a single win in this series. And so that's also something that needs to be assessed by people smarter than me when considering what to do with the coach, man. But I'm telling you, you go into the next season with a less deep basketball team, and you think that he's made, he's going to make a big jump from year 1 to year 2. Jump in what? The roster's going to be worse. Jump in what? Even if he does make some significant jumps, if the team is going to be lesser, how much of a jump would it actually be realized to be? I'm frustrated. I'm happy we got this far, but I just don't see a championship very close to us as a franchise. Not very. No. Because we're closer to resetting all of this than actually getting to a championship and improving from here. As it pertains to just the distance. The distance. Even though it feels like we're closer to a championship, we're very far from one. And coming back next year, I don't even think we get this far. So, yeah, I don't think there's an intelligent way to knee jerk in regards to how your team is fared right after you lose. There's nothing really fully smart that's going to come out of me in regards to what to do with the team. I know that. You have to really assess things properly. You got to sit on things. You got to look at things that I'm not looking at. So that's just what it is. But from a knee jerk perspective, just like off a whim where my head is at, I want to go forward with Anthony Davis. I want to go forward with Rui Hachimura. I want to go forward with Austin Reeves. And just about everybody else on the team is up in the air, bro. Just about everybody else up in the air. I'm not saying it could go either way. I'm just saying that we got to give some thought to each and every one of them dudes. Whether or not they're going to fit on the next situation we're going to have, as much as they may have fit in this situation. Dennis Schroeder, up in the air. D'Lo, I don't think so, man. I don't think so. Lonnie Walker, if we're not going to use him more than we did this year, I think I could probably live without him if we're going to just sit him next year, just like we did this year. Troy Brown, you know what I'm saying? I like Troy. I think he's actually a good piece. I wouldn't mind holding on to Troy. But my expectations for Troy is that he won't get better from here. He'll be this guy, and he'll be my 13th guy on the team forever. Like, I ain't never expecting him to play too much better than this. So that's why I don't mind keeping Troy. He's a long, lengthy player, and if he's the worst player on my bench, I feel great. Be honest with you. I don't think he's going to cost me nothing. And I don't mind putting him on the floor in situations, knowing he's not going to take away no shots from a star, knowing that his three-point shot could fall pretty good. He's had some good rebounding games. He's linked to block a shot. He's only like 23 years old. So it's like, if I invest in Troy Brown, role player, at 23, and just live with him. By the time he's 26, 27 years old, I'm going to love having that player. Vando, same thing. Of course, I forgot to mention Vando, but Vando, same thing. But the problem with Vando is I don't know if I can use him. So if I can't turn him into the Vando, and he's going to be a 4.1 rebound player, then hell yeah, I got to get rid of him, man. Why? Because that's value realized that I'm going to dissipate on my roster, and I'm not going to have the most for him if I let him sit in this role for too long. If we continue to let Darvin turn him into what he did in these playoffs, bro, we ain't going to have no peace there. He ain't going to be worth nothing. And so that's really what it comes down to. I want to keep Vando more than I want to keep most of the stuff we got. But if I can't turn Vando into Vando, then what I have is a piece that's going to be worth nothing soon. Based on how we're using him. We're going to mess up his value just like we did Beasley's. And Vando ain't the dude to do that with. So for me, it's like, if you're not going to utilize Vando properly, it's going to be a pain for me. It's going to be a real pain for me. Because having to relinquish a piece like that I know can fit and be a special gem for most coaches, and the coach I got can't find no way to use him, he ain't the problem. You understand what I'm saying? He ain't the problem. Because I know if I give him to Coach G, Coach A, Coach F, they're going to turn that boy into a monster. They're going to be getting 15 boards out of him, 3 blocks, 9 points, 3 steals. Like, that's Vandalorian. What Darvin turned him into is some shell of himself that he only wanted to give 11 minutes a game to. That's garbage. That's absolute garbage when you consider what Vando can do. So, that's what has to be said. I will trade Vando if for some reason I'm certain we're going to bring him back and utilize him in next season just like we did in this series.